Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome to this Veterans Day special on All Quiet on the Western Front. It was one of my favorite books, at least on military matters, and the movies are fantastic. And that's what we're going to be here talking about. And to help me do that, we got 70s rock fan, big longtime fan, friend of the channel, and Fish Jozo, a guy I stream with regularly. And we're going to have some other special guests popping on here.
Hi, everybody.
We're going to have a couple of special guests popping on here in a little bit to help us talk about this. And before we do that, another friend of the show, Joe's Atmosphere, sent a video to me because he wanted to be here, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. So we are going to share his video here.
Okay.
And let me know if you can see it.
Yep, can see it and hear it.
Excellent.
Quietly, but you can hear it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's anything I can do about that.
It is pretty quiet, yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty quiet, but...
I want to thank everyone in my family and all around the United States for those.
Yeah, but I can't see none of this stuff, by the way.
You can't see it?
I can see it. Yeah, I think.
May be still serving these great United States.
Now, these are all immediate family, I guess.
Yep.
America, land of the free, because of the brave. Thank you.
No, on my end, because I'm on my phone, because I already hear you and see. This is
Okay.
The joint thing we wanted to talk about with tomorrow being Veterans Day. Danny and I are both veterans, and we wanted to give a shout out to a certain veteran that our one of our correspondents. You met one last night at Royal Fox. Well, his correspondent there at the house, the great Kim.
Yes.
We'll call her Wonder Woman for now until she gets a tag she likes.
Yes.
She's a big Wonder Woman fan.
Yes.
She produced this one for us. World War II derailed Wink Lamb's UW swimming career. Now, nearly 100, he's setting new swim records.
This guy's 100 years old and still
incredible.
swimming, still very active, still setting records. You know, as a veteran, and obviously it says in the article that World War II kind of did derail its swimming aspirations, but look at him, nearly 100, and he's still doing it. He's still in the swim. He's still in the pool, and he's setting records. It's inspirational, man. You know, he's a veteran as well. So just want to take a second to thank all the veterans out there for your service. Really appreciate it. You know, our country would not be where it is without the men and women in the services and protecting that flag, and protecting our freedom, and protecting our security. So thank you very much, all you veterans out there. God bless you.
Hats off to all the veterans out there. We love you, man.
That was nice.
Hi, I'm Joe's Atmosphere. You've just seen a clip from my brother and I's show that we did last night called The Brothers Hack the Matrix. We do it every Thursday. And we did that one specifically for Veterans Day. And, I want to give a special shout out to Pope Metallicus the First. Sorry I can't be with you today, man. But to you and all my other brothers in arms out there, I want to wish you a happy Veterans Day. And to the civilian world, I want to promise you that none of us have ever forgotten our oath that we took to protect our country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So you can sleep soundly tonight knowing that we're watching your back. Thank you very much for the time, and I hope you have a great stream with All Quiet on the Western Front's review there, Pope, and I'll see you guys next time I see you. Take care, and have a great Veterans Day.
Nice.
I can see it now.
Good man.
That was a nice video. Let's
It's
get
good of
back
him to do that. Although I do have to say, I would be a bit worried if I was lying asleep and I knew Joe was watching my back.
Oh,
sorry, I took that too literally. That was
yeah,
good. He's a good man. I didn't know he was an MP.
yeah. I mean, I think I knew that, but
Ah, there you go, eh?
really,
I'll have to
it's
look at him in a
really
different light
cool
now.
of him to do that. And obviously, I was served in the Marine Corps for 4 years during the Afghan War. 70s rock fan, is former RAF.
British RAF and first Gulf War.
The fun Gulf War.
Yeah,
the
that one
one
was,
that didn't last a million years.
That's right.
And we have this Chozo guy I stream with all the time. He's not a veteran, but I wanted a couple civilian takes on this as well, because we're used to this and we talk about it all the time, whereas this may be their first kind of encounter with some of these ideas. And
No, the only thing I know about the military is one dad told me about it when he was in Marine Corps back during Vietnam. He never actually went.
Hey, Shellback's in the chat. If you want to jump in, man, yeah, absolutely.
Get Shell on here, yeah. I mean, we need a naval representative.
Exactly. And then I'm not sure how to get you the link to here though, because I don't think I have your
I can do it, so
Okay.
leave it with me while you talk amongst yourselves.
Absolutely. Love to have you on, man. And then getting into the book, I mean, it's a brilliant read. And it's not a long one either. It's only I think 230 something pages. So it's a very short book and done in 1928 by Erich Remarque, who I believe was a World War I veteran himself. And if not, he definitely talked to some people, because the portrayals.
He was a World War I veteran. He was.
He was
a World War I veteran.
And so, like, the portrayals of the characters and the interaction between soldiers and the feeling and the thoughts that are going through your mind is just perfect, especially going throughout all this, the most horrific war that had ever been fought to that point. And in my mind, is still a little more brutal, even than World War II.
Shellback, I've sent that link to you on Twitter as
well,
a DM. Yeah, I've sent it to him.
All right, Mila, I sent the link to you as well on Discord if you want to jump on. I can't have too many people because it's StreamYard, but I can rotate you guys in and out if you want. And yeah, the 1979 movie I thought was a brilliant take on the book, much more so than the 1931. I think that one's starting to show its age quite a bit.
Yeah, and that wasn't long after
it was.
the
I couldn't even watch the whole thing because it was. I couldn't even watch the whole thing because there's no cinematography in this movie at all. It's basically just we introduced a bunch of characters at once. Like, it was the storytelling is way off in that movie because they didn't know yet at that time they made it.
Yeah, the 1979 version starring Ernest Borgnine as Cat is just great, and it still holds up really well to this day.
Yeah.
Well, the 1930 version.
The reason for this 1933 movie didn't have any kind of storytelling, filmmaking techniques, because this film was just invented recently. I mean,
yeah,
talkies just invented at that time. I mean,
it was they just kind of acted like it was a play almost, just speaking the lines to each other.
Yeah,
in that dry way.
Yeah, I know.
It was very kind of. But the 1979 version was great, and the newer version, like the one that just came out on Netflix, you guys can all go watch it, and I would highly recommend you do, because it is a brilliant movie. It's beautiful. First of all, some of the cinematography is just gorgeous. And
the bit with the flares, the flares, when the flares go up and he's standing watching the flares coming down, that was really, really impactful. The cinematography there was fantastic.
Yeah, and even some of like the landscape shots, like around the farm and whatever, it looks beautiful. Like the lighting is just gorgeous. Like it's done really, really well.
Yeah, and the contrast of the stark beauty of the nature against the destruction and mayhem of the fighting is extremely well done. But I want to go back to the book, because believe it or not, I've never read the book. You've read it. Did you ever read the sequel?
I haven't.
Back? No, I wonder, because I wonder what that's. I guess it's more, because it was 1930. It's more about reintegrating into post-war peacetime Germany.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that no one talks about when you talk like war movies and stuff like that, is what happens to these guys after the war.
Yeah.
Especially going into a Germany that had been absolutely humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles.
The only movie that had something like that was Rambo. I watched it as Rambo: First Blood, and that was now
underrated in terms of how it portrays a returning veteran, and especially from the Vietnam era. And it is an important thing, and I love, like, there's scenes in the book and the movies as well where they're all talking about what they're going to do after the war. And it's really soul crushing because none of them survive. Like, they all die in the end.
I know.
They all.
I know they all died there. I know.
So, but I
love how it's cyclical in this movie, because they repeat scenes from the start of the movie at the end.
Yep. And one thing I really liked in the book is, because it's all told from the main character's perspective, Paul Baumer, and they never mention the moment when almost any of them die. They just kind of the book just kind of keeps chugging along, and then like he'll mention that so and so's gone or so and so got murdered, because you become numb to it. Oh, and
we do see the moment. You see the moment one of them dies later on in the movie,
with the exception of Cat, because he's like the other main character of the book, and we have a shellback sighting. How's it going, my friend?
Shellback, hey buddy.
I wasn't ready. I'm like,
I thought you were always ready. Oh no, that's some other branch of the military.
No, that's the Boy Scouts.
All right, yeah. Are you ready?
Or no, always prepared, whatever. Yeah.
The Navy are always lubricated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just kidding, brother.
There's reasons, okay?
How you doing? How are you doing?
Unlikely story.
What kind of a day have you had?
Kind of quiet. The sun came out for about 2.5 minutes here in the Pacific Northwest. So, yeah, just in time to, it's like, hey, here I am, Mr. Sun, but I'm going down now.
Yeah, that's how it works in New England too.
Yeah.
We'll show up just long enough for you to realize it's still there, and then
beautiful sunny day here in the prairies. Admittedly, pretty nippy with a couple of feet of snow on the ground, but it's sunny.
You're going the wrong way, though, dude.
I'm moving away from you, Shell.
You're like, I moved, and it's like, but I'm still in Canada, and I'm like, well, what?
I have to go down there or down that way. Yeah.
Hey, Crusaders here. How's it going, man? Good to see you. He's actually the one who did the art for my channel.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
So specifically, this one right here.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
And always like to see him around. And no, I mean, what did you think of the new version, Shellback?
A new version of what?
Of All Quiet on the Western Front.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think so.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix right now.
Oh, is it?
It's a German cast and German production.
Then I should, really, because I got Okay, so back when the whole QT thing was going on, it's like people were like, fuck Netflix and all this shit, and I'm like, well, I don't have to do anything because I don't have them, so like I didn't have to, but I'm like, but I did, recently get a Netflix, subscription or whatever, because of Cobra Kai. So, and I'm kind of glad I did, because they've got other shows that I enjoyed growing up, like Knight Rider, for instance. I mean, starting over from scratch on Knight Rider, has been awesome, because it's like, 80s, I mean,
That and you get to
I know.
rewatch episodes you watch as a kid, and you'll notice something, a lot
Yeah.
of different stuff. I go through the same thing with some of the old series I used
I mean,
to watch.
some of it, some of these older shows, you watch them now, and you're like, I'm like, did I actually like this when I was a kid, or I thought, because I'm like, oh, what is that? No, that that's total, but it's still, it's still entertaining. It's like, so it's like, the stuff that entertained us when we were kids, but yeah, no, I'll have to check that out, because I'm trying to actually. I'm
Some
trying
of those
to
old
place
80s shows are better than shows we have now.
Oh, way better.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to place that.
I mean, the first two episodes of the first two episodes of MacGyver actually blew me away. For example.
Yeah, because you're on the younger side, Fizz, so that's probably the first time you've actually seen it. They used to be on TV when I was a kid. And, there was some real classic television back then, even on in, even on into the 70s, there was some really great stuff.
Because we tend to remember the great stuff because the bad shit disappeared pretty quick and it was never seen again.
Back
and
then, networks were freaking ruthless too. Like if your show didn't get good ratings, it was done. Like sometimes you wouldn't even last a full season.
Yeah, they memory hold that shit pretty fast.
I mean, look at Firefly; they canceled that after 13 episodes, which is unfortunate because it was a great show. It just nobody watched it. On at least live, because they put in random time slots on different days of the week and aired the episodes out of orders, like they were trying to get that show canceled.
Well, you got to wonder, haven't you?
Yeah,
that is one of my.
But nowadays,
go ahead. Fizz.
Nowadays, even the good shit or even the bad shit sticks around for like 2 years.
I know. Like for example, I don't know why the hell Big Mouth's still going.
No idea, man. But yeah, I mean, getting back to the movies, like it really is. You can see
like because nowadays we have streaming service, and streaming service don't have to release ratings.
True, and the good news is when something's really good on a streaming service, everybody knows about it because everybody told their friends. But the bad shit is up there too, and it stays there forever.
So remind me of what All Quiet on the Western Front is, because like right now in my head, I think what I've got in my head, I think is what was it called? Enemy at the Gate or something.
That's about World War II. That's the
it was like the
Russian.
It was the Russian
Russian sniper. Yep.
Russian dudes, and then and I want to say it was like Jude. Was it Jude Law or okay?
Before the 1979 version of this movie, I always got it confused. I confused the older one with Paths of Glory.
I can see why they are very similar. Yeah,
I always confused them, but obviously now I know different. But then I thought, this isn't All Quiet on the Western Front. Isn't that Kirk Douglas? No, no. I've lost Shell. He's gone. But yeah, Shell, we'll tell you what it's about if you come back.
I'm still here. I'm just bending over to get something.
Oh God! At your age, don't do that. You might never get up again.
No, I've
falling and I can't get up.
Not to derail, but I think I'm going to officially celebrate Veterans Day later on this evening with this fine film.
Excellent movie.
Oh yeah,
one of the funniest war movies or military movies of all time.
Because I mean, I've heard all kinds of good, serious, military movies today. Like I was tuning in on Jerry spelled Gary, on Pop Culture Minefield, and they listed off a bunch of stuff that I haven't even seen yet. And
that was a good panel. I enjoyed being on there.
That the thing is though, it's like, I don't know. It's sometimes, like I love, like really serious stuff like Band of Brothers, and even though I was a I was a squid. You know, I love these, you know, army movies, right?
Looks like we have somebody else joining us here. Say hello to Trucker Rob. How's it going, dude?
Hey, Rob.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
You're pretty low.
Oh, let me see if I can fix that.
Shout.
All right. Just speak louder. It's what we. Or it's what the rest
Speak
of us do.
louder. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll fix it right up.
We can laugh at ourselves though.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna ask you, Shell. Then, what's your favorite naval war movie?
Oh man. Well, I tell you, I grew up. I mean, of course they were, you know, long gone from the theaters. Like I'd see them on TV. You know, on TV on the weekends or whatever. But you know, like the old school stuff, like Tora, and
Hell in the Pacific.
You know, the Fighting Seabees, and you know,
And then,
like all
one of
those
my favorite horror movies.
you know, all those, you know, 40s and 50s era, you know, movies that they would play on TV, you know, when I was a kid, you know. Yeah. But you know, thing is though, like I'm you made me think though. I want to bring up a couple of TV shows as well. One was McHale's Navy.
Oh yeah, great show.
Yeah.
You know, which you know, it was more of a, you know, comedy type thing. But one of the shows that I freaking love, I would love to find it like on, you know, physical media. Like I would love to own this show, you know, and be like in my hands. Black Sheep Squadron.
Yep.
And Pope, I was gonna say Pope better know what that show is.
Absolutely. And I believe one of the advisors on it was Pappy himself.
Yeah, I think so. He was, yeah.
I don't think they ever showed that in the UK because when I was a kid.
Dude, it's an awesome show, and it had like what's it?
Robert Conrad was this
right? Yeah, Robert Conrad played Pappy. But like
it had a lot of people that you saw sitting right there.
Yeah. John Larroquette was in it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had John Larroquette and a lot of people that you would recognize in other TV shows and whatnot.
I've never seen that. Yeah,
back in that day. But yeah, it was a Marine. It was a Marine fighter squadron based in the Pacific, and they flew the F4U4 in the Corsair, and that's the one that had like the bowed looking wings on it, and but yeah, and you know, and the thing is, you know, it was based on real people, you know, a real squadron, and they got their name, the Black Sheep Squadron, because that's what they were. You know, they were every one of them were considered, you know, black sheep or fuck ups or whatever, you know, and they turned out to be like just a kick-ass freaking crew, you know. But,
yeah, and Boyington himself was actually a technical advisor on the show, so that had to be really interesting for Robert Conrad to be playing a guy who's sitting there staring at him.
Yeah,
especially that guy could kill him in a heartbeat. So yeah, I've never seen that or heard of that, so I'm going to check that out. It does apparently is available on DVD.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and if you like, you know, if you like military stuff, if you like aviation, you know, it's a good show. It's definitely a good show.
See, I learned something today. Thanks, Shell.
And Rob, what did you think of the movie, man?
Which one? Sorry, is my audio any better?
Yeah, your audio is great now.
Okay.
And then the 2022 one.
2022 one, I actually really enjoyed it. I mean, it's definitely a lot different than the 79 version in the book itself. I feel like some of the overacting was a little bit much at some parts, but I mean, it just the part that really sticks out in my mind is like when the tanks are coming over, you know, and the French are just flaming people. It's like, holy shit, man. It is probably one of the most brutal movies I've ever seen.
Space especially since tanks were probably just invented at that moment, at that time.
Yeah, pretty much.
They were only a couple years old, and like there was no effective counter to them at that
mechanized
point.
warfare must have been.
Yeah. So German soldiers didn't know what the hell that was. All they know was some kind of vehicle that has a gun built in.
Yeah, they were. I mean, the first use of tanks in warfare was at the Somme in 1916, which would only be a year before this movie takes place. So chances are most German soldiers had never seen a tank.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long since they'd ever seen an automobile, never mind a tank, you know? Yeah.
I know. Especially so the scene with the bullets was bouncing off the tank. Like, they didn't know what the hell they was going to do.
Yeah, because
the
machine gun was like the god weapon of the day, and it's just bouncing rounds right off it. And they're like, uh-oh.
I mean, they still heavily used horses during World War One.
The armies weren't even fully mechanized until after World War II.
Even World War II, when it started, it was 80% horse-drawn, certainly for transport behind the front.
And that's something I want to talk about, Christian, because they did an excellent job not only on those tanks, because that is the exact tank that they would have been using at that time. All of the uniforms, all the weapons, all the gear looks perfect, and it's actual period weapons. It's an actual long-barreled Gewehr 98 rather than the K98, which was their weapon during World War II. And there are differences that you can notice.
Even the mud was period accurate.
But I did like that attention to detail.
Oh yeah, that was perfect.
Mud.
I mean, down to the canned food, for God's sakes.
Using actual steel cans to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really enjoyed the performance of Felix Kammerer, who was Paul. I felt there was a lot of early Malcolm McDowell in him from, if you think of Clockwork Orange. It's that kind of, he had that kind of look about him and that kind of wide-eyed. I felt there was a bit of that,
No, I did. I really liked his performance because, especially early on in the movie, because he looks like he has, or sells the idea that he has absolutely no idea what's going on and is just trying to make it through the next 20 seconds.
See how quickly they discovered just what it was really all about. Like within minutes of getting to the front. This isn't what we thought it was, Yeah,
and I love that narrative too, where you just get to the front and already you're taking shell fire and stuff like that.
Yeah, go pick those dog tags up with those dead people and bail this trench out while you're at it,
And I love the scene when they're sitting in the dugout and the guy just starts freaking out and runs out and gets himself killed. But that shit happened. That was what we talk about when we talk about shell shock. Is just being guys would just be driven insane, because this wasn't like artillery is now, where it'll be a couple second barrage to destroy a target. This would be a days, if not weeks long, constant shelling.
And every second thinking the next one could be me. Yeah,
and
that constant fear.
One actually does dig a little deep, or they hit you with something heavier, and it does get into the dugout. You're all gone.
It's hard to imagine what the horrors that they went through, and God forbid they were maybe somebody used the wrong pronouns today, and oh my God, you're hurting me. We just, when you see what these kids went through,
we're talking a war where mustard gas and flamethrowers were common battlefield tools.
Well, that's just on the streets of Chicago now.
Oh man,
sure. You talk about mustard gas. So that's how an infamous Austrian dude ended up with a really short mustache.
And also why he never used gas even during World War II is that he had an absolute
Mr.
fear of it.
Schicklgruber.
No idea who you could possibly be talking about.
It's Schicklgruber. Yeah, I mean, it's actually the bit at the end of the movie. You talked earlier about the number of people that died. It did have that blurb at the end that said in the First World War, 17 million people died in battle.
Yeah,
I think it said in battle, or was it just in general? I don't know.
I think it's
3 million
in battle, but
3 million in the trenches, but 14 million outside of that.
Yeah,
that's an unbelievable death toll.
The Great War, or the war to end all wars. Yeah. not so
Yeah,
much.
So
But
they were to end all wars for a year or two. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
I also like the fact that they sowed it, and I haven't read the book, so you'll know if it's in there or not. They sowed immediately into this film the seeds of the next war were built
It
into
didn't
the
really go-
ending of this
They
war.
didn't really go into that in
No,
this
no.
one because Paul dies in
Mm.
October 1918, and that's the end of the book.
Mm.
But yeah, I did like that they mentioned that the
They
Treaty of
built-
Versailles basically made
Screwed
War
the
II
Germans
inevitable.
hard.
Mm.
And as Daniel Bruhl's character said, well, you're going to starve us. Well, naturally, there's going to be repercussions for that. You know,
Yeah.
think about it.
It's like when you put a country through that kind of hardship, especially after losing that many young men, they're not going to forgive you for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
no,
obviously there were
Hey.
Bolshevism was their concern too. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
And I love how they show the politician debate scenes to how wealthy they are living in comparison to what's going down in
Oh
the
yeah.
trenches.
I did really like that, the juxtaposition of like either the politicians or the officers, like, you know, the generals and stuff, living in relative comfort and stuff like that, and having
this
all
bread
sorts of-
isn't fresh. you know.
having all sorts of luxuries. Meanwhile, you have guys raiding local farms for food.
Yeah.
Yeah, stealing a
And
goose.
There's a good scene in the '79 movie and in the book that isn't in this one, and I wish it was because it was great. Where they're all getting in line to get their food, and it's right in the beginning, and he's like,
The double portions.
yeah, and the cook's trying to fight him on it. He's like, it's like, I was told to issue out food to the second company, and it's like, we're it. It's like,
Yeah, I think
out of 150, there was 70
There-
of them left.
There
Yeah.
was a reference to that in there though in this
Mhm.
film. In this
Yeah,
film.
at the very end. Which-
But they're like, oh yeah,
One thing I
was
asked-
told to feed the second company. It's like, this is the second company.
Mm.
Okay, one thing I asked because of considering how the soldiers were starving on the battlefield, why was I assume some of them will resort to cannibalism and was probably eating the corpses of the enemies or even the
Who
comrades.
knows?
I don't know of any recorded incidents where that happened, but it would not shock me.
They certainly ate
Exactly.
shoe leather, rats, wood, you name it, anything that they could. Yeah, they were eating all sorts of shit, literally, you know.
Yeah.
And,
Which
and
that's one of the
what-
things. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead, Rob.
I was gonna say that's one of the things like it talks about in the book a lot too. Is like how the other side was better fed and things like that.
Mhm.
And when you get when they raid the trench on the other side, they're just they're starting to eat all the food and stuff. It's
Yeah, and they're grabbing everything that they're not eating. They're just stuffing it in their pockets and running back with
They
it.
forget the fighting. That's right.
They're like, fuck the weapons and equipment. We just want their food.
Yeah, it's the food, and that was a big part in the Germans' defeat, though. As he said, to Daniel Bruhl again, said 250,000 Americans every month are landing in France. We're out of people. We can't fight this. We cannot win this.
Yeah, it's,
And they were out of supplies. Their supply chain was cut off because of the naval blockades. They were running out of everything. So, whilst they didn't truly get defeated, the end was inevitable for them. So,
hey, Clay, how's it going, man? And it was like, I think there's scenes in all of these that really kind of puts it in perspective of what these guys were up against. And that it wasn't just the French or the English; it was the English, the Americans. Like, they were just too far outnumbered.
Another thing in
Technology
the
as
movie I
well.
noticed is the grenades. The grenades look almost like Molotov cocktails.
Yeah, that's how the
Mm.
Germans built their grenades for a long time, is with that long stick handle. It was a different way of doing it, and you could throw them a lot further.
it seems quite sensible to me that you get a good
and-
grasp of it, and
And
you
if you're
can
really
really
brave, you
throw
can
it.
also use it as a melee weapon if you
You
need
can
to.
hit someone in the head. Yeah.
I did appreciate the use of the spade though in the
Oh God, yes.
the new movie because
Yeah,
they
that was
talked about it
fun.
a bit in the book, but I mean just seeing them go ham with the spade was
Yeah,
absolutely wild.
Yeah, they do a lot. There's a lot of melee combat in this movie for some reason because you wouldn't expect that in the modern day military war
Mm.
conflict. But
Well,
yeah,
and-
there's
I mean,
That's-
in World War One, once you get into the trench with the bad guys, like
Not a lot of
laser
room
or
to
melee
maneuver
weapon is
weapons,
probably more
yeah.
efficient.
Yeah, we're
Not a lot of
talking
room.
Yeah, but
long
those-
bolt-action rifles. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
those little entrenching tools, those spades that you can. I mean, you can go pick one up at an army surplus store, but yeah, you freaking like and they'll lock in a position to where like the spade and the pick are like this. So basically, you got like a freaking battle axe. You could freaking lock them in, and that that blade is like you could you can freaking bury it in somebody.
Just thinking, if Shell was to be a serial killer, that could be his weapon of choice.
There we go.
Like Friday, if Shellback had his own Friday the 13th series. That's true.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's a possibility. Also, a good Est-wing roofing hammer would be,
But I mean, those shovels were something that every infantryman was gonna have.
Yeah.
Like, whereas even a bayonet,
because they got to dig up trenches to be in.
Mm-hmm. And that shovel, they used them all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would freaking just sharpen the edge of it.
Well, you don't need to reload it, and it'll never jam.
Yep. And in fact,
Exactly.
when the Germans faced off against us at Belleau Wood, they were absolutely horrified because we had the trench shotgun. So we just started ripping them apart close range because we had a 12 gauge shotgun, and in a trench, that thing is the perfect weapon. Where it's just like, I don't need to aim, blap. And we had the 1897 Winchester, the trench gun that we were using, had an interesting feature in that it could be what we call slam fired, in that you didn't have to put, like normally with a pump action shotgun, you have to let off the trigger, rack the action, and then fire again. This thing had no disconnect between the trigger and the pump. So you could do what we call slam fire, was just literally just keep working the pump, and it would fire 6 rounds in like 2 seconds. So that was an absolutely devastating amount of firepower to put into the trenches. And later on in the war too, a lot of sides started catching on to things like light machine guns, submachine guns on the German side. They had the MP-18, which was kind of cool. And then obviously all the brutal close range weapons like flamethrowers and stuff like that, which was just horrific.
Put them all together, you'd have the perfect weapon.
Well, I mean, they did. In a lot of the stormtrooper squads, you would have like a flamethrower, a couple light machine guns, an SMG, and then a couple guys with rifles.
The early version of video games in real life. I'm just going to upgrade this by adding a flamethrower.
So I was watching. I was watching.
Flamethrower was Chesty Puller in World War II. Upon being shown the flamethrower, he asked where the bayonet log was.
Jesus.
You run out of fuel.
The point's to burn.
Yeah, but if you run out of fuel, you're going to need a backup.
And that was just the Marine mentality of we'll put a bayonet on everything.
Yes, pity your poor women.
Wait, didn't in World War I they have guns that with a grenade launcher on top of it? Was that World War II later?
That was more World War II when they started having things like rifle grenades. I think they were starting to be used towards the end of the war, but that was more a World War II thing.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Commander Phil, how's it going, man?
So something I was interested in this portrayal of the movie, and I don't have, as I say, I haven't read the book, was the fact that there's very little enmity between the German troops and the people they're fighting. They're just those people over there.
Yeah, like
there's no I hate those French bastards or I hate those British bastards. There's none of that.
Similar to the book and the other movie as well.
Just,
there was no hatred. It was just
it's just a bunch of guys, and we don't kill them, they'll kill us, but there was no hatred.
Yeah, I remember this one point in the movie was Paul trying to save a French soldier he killed.
Yeah, he was freaked out by what he had done. Yeah,
it is so much worse in the book. That is a brutal part of the book.
Oh God, yes.
Especially when he starts, and he's looking over his stuff. I mean, they show him looking over stuff in the movie, but I mean, he's thinking about things like, oh man, I need to like send them money because now they don't have a father in the family and things like all these things going through his mind, and the guy's just trying to survive,
And ironically, he loses the book.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then no spoiler alert. Then he dies. So nobody knows about them, or nobody would even know what happened to that soldier.
Hey, Moon. Yeah, I shared it in the Discord.
Too. Hey, how's it going, dude? Always good to see you guys. But no, I mean, that scene in the book and in the 79 movie too is pretty freaking brutal.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, it's not like he stabs him, he dies, and then he's sitting there, talking to the body. Like, this dude is still alive for hours.
It was his last words. Good night, John boy. Sorry.
But that was a particularly like gut wrenching scene. There's another one in the book too. They kind of do it in the 2022 movie, where they find a dugout that is just full of dead young or dead soldiers because they were too young to know not to take their gas masks off yet.
Yeah, they replaced that with the
warehouse. Yep.
Yeah, they kind of mix scenes. Well, I really like how they did it. I mean, it's it's one of those times where if you're not 100% accurate to the book, it's fine if you do it in a way that makes sense. So
yeah.
That scene where he kills the French guy and then he's not dead yet, but he regrets it and wakes up from his frenzy and goes, I had tears in my eyes in that bit. That was I really felt for them. Both of them.
And it's a very different kind of combat too, because if you're used to shooting a rifle, you're just shooting at a shape over there. Like he doesn't, but when you're fighting hand to hand with someone, like that's like this is a person.
Isn't there a great scene in Saving Private Ryan where there's a hand to hand fight with a German in a building and it's brutal. Yeah.
Yep. And
it's personal.
It was, and it was really, really interesting. And that shit happened all the time over there. Like you jump in, it's like, if you're in no man's land, you jump in a shell hole. And they go into it in the book too, where like, especially for like night raids and stuff like that, you could get turned around in the middle of no man's land and end up jumping into the enemy trench.
That's that was a big point of the book. That's why he hid, in the hole in the first place, was because he got lost.
Yeah,
the attack was coming
and was afraid that he would end up in the French lines, which that would have been interesting. Of just hi guys.
Which talk about another, like we'll go back to they're just the people over there kind of talk. Like when the one guy tries to surrender, they light his ass on fire. It's just gun him down. I mean, it's like, holy shit, man.
that was kind of like, wow, okay,
what does the book say, Pope, about the relationship between the German troops and the French people in the occupied areas they were in? Is there any?
I'm trying to bang them.
Liaison between three of the guys and three French women.
And there's the women in the film.
Is one way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I remember the panties that get passed around.
Yeah, in the 79 movie and in the book, there's a scene where they actually meet up with three French girls while they're bathing in a lake somewhere, and end up meeting up with them and hooking up.
Yeah, Paul's reaction to that in the book is very telling too, because he can't even enjoy himself because his mind's elsewhere. Which I love and hate all the mental stuff in the book. Like I love it because it's so detailed and really good description of shell shock, and I mean, but it's hard to listen to in the book because I did an audiobook,
Yeah,
but it's some rough shit.
But yeah, the book is it doesn't pull any punches.
No, not at all.
Just showing you exactly what these guys went through and just the numbness that they exist in. Like he even says it in the book a couple of times where it's like you weren't even human. We were basically animals that were just kind of.
It strikes me that it would feel like you'd gone to hell, that you died and you were in hell, stuck in those trenches with the mud and the rats and the constant shelling and
The thing is, though,
probably a bunch of bugs eating away at the skin.
Me being a Navy dude, and I was in aviation, so I just the pilots did my job. They did my killing for me.
Hey, me too, buddy. I was Air Force.
But it's.
Oh, we got a full roster.
We have.
Yep.
Do we have any Army people?
Gary might be stopping by later, so yeah, we'll have an Army guy or Marcus Sidewalk.
We got everybody because I'm a coastie, so
yeah.
Oh, there you go.
But the whole acting like an animal or being an animal or whatever, it's like, that's how you're gonna survive.
It's primitive survival instinct.
Yeah, it's so. I mean,
but
I don't know.
like when you're on the ground, especially like you do like even there's just the conditions you live in, like you feel like subhuman because you're just kind of existing. Like there's not really any kind of way of creature comforts and stuff like that. You're just kind of going from meal to meal and trying to live.
There's a massive amount of guys got all sorts of diseases or died because of afflictions and trench foot and things like that. They wasn't just the fighting. You could be killed by many other ways living in those trenches and never have a bullet near you. You know.
In fact, they mention a guy in the book that dies of tetanus.
Yeah.
Which was all over the
place. Yeah, one of the things that goes pretty early on in the book. What's the first guy who dies? Was it Remarque?
Oh, Remarque. Yep.
You know, and I forget what the other guy's name was. I think it was Crop. But yeah, Jesus Christ. But I about lost my train of thought there. But you know, he's trying to get the boots off of Remarque, and it was just that was his sole focus. Is his friend's dying? Is like, I want these boots. You know, I need these boots. Das Boot, Das
boots.
I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be tan though in the book, not like the shiny black leather.
Yeah, but
I really appreciated those scenes near the beginning where they showed the machine behind the front line. The uniforms are taken off, put in a big pile, carted back, washed, repaired, and handed out again. You don't normally see that in a war movie. You just see the guys at the front or the guys in the fighting. It's a huge machine behind there to keep that whole thing going.
And this really was the first industrial war, where like the valor of your soldiers mattered almost nothing, and it was all about who had more equipment, more guys, and just more bodies to throw into the grinder. And that lost the fight.
That and the tactics kind of caught up with the equipment or whatever used. You know, like it wasn't like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, or whatever, where everybody was like all lined up, and it's like, okay, well, who can, it's like, and even they were in the trenches, they were, behind, they were in undercover, whatever you want to say. And it's, which, as we've gone along, it's more, I think we're more towards, guerrilla warfare, using cover and hiding behind things and whatnot. But
you have to.
Yeah, Christian, the Battle of the Somme was nuts. I think the British lost 50,000 KIA in the first hour. Of a month-long offensive.
Needless slaughter, yeah.
And
it really makes me angry when I think about it.
I mean,
they need to show this film and films like it in schools and say, this is, fuck your pronouns. This is what people have gone through, and stop cheering for fake wars. Virtuous wars, woohoo! Let's go fight the bad Eastern man. Realize what you're talking about.
Yeah, you see a lot of that on like Reddit and stuff. Where like warfare in World War I, like it had become extremely impersonal. With all the artillery barrages and just the rate that
you weren't going to see the thing that killed you.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like nowadays, like you see people. Like in the United States and stuff going on Reddit, and they're celebrating, like Russian conscripts just having a drone hover over them and drop a grenade into a foxhole. And it's like, that's not something I can celebrate. There's no honor in that.
I know, it's scum that would cheer something like that,
And like, it's one thing. It's one thing. We've all seen the terrorist videos from like, the gun camps of either like an Apache or something like that with them getting gone. But, that's one thing. But when it's guys in an actual warfare, like there is no good side in a war.
No,
there's only your side and the other, and all sides have done bad shit to each other. Like
cheerlead for people who cheerlead for war who will never personally take part in it are a big problem.
Absolutely.
No, don't people do that are ones who want money off, get money off of it. Like manufacturers.
was gonna say with
Yeah.
recruiting rates going the way that they're going, people are probably gonna get drafted if we go into another big war soon. So
Absolutely.
they'll see theirs eventually.
I would
That'll
love
be
to
a
watch some
shock.
of these Gen Zers go through Paris Island.
Just as long as we don't misgender them, then they'll be okay. They'll handle it okay.
Yeah, when you protest against me having an AR-15 with a 30-round magazine, but you're all for people on the
Droning
other
the
side
shit out of somebody. Yeah.
the other side of the pond, like, oh yes, arm them, arm them, it's like, wait a minute, you don't want me to have one, but you want them to have one.
Yep. Yeah, I know what you mean, Shell. So there was actually something I wanted to talk about though, which was so Daniel Bruhl's character, the Erzberger, who does it wasn't really a negotiation. He was told what to sign. The guy that's the conscience of the piece, I guess, from the German side he talks about his son being killed in the war. Now, at the very beginning of the film, the guy whose name still ends up on the uniform, when I saw that, I thought that looks like a young Daniel Bruhl. The guy that gets killed, you see him attacking and then you don't see him again, but he's clearly dead. I wonder if that was meant to be his son.
That would have been really, really fucking cool if they actually added that on purpose. It might just be an accident, but I'm gonna give them fucking credit.
I'd have to go and look at the name tag again because it's the same name tag that Paul gets. It's the same jacket.
Yeah, it's Erzberger, and the thing is, he looked a bit like him and we hadn't seen Daniel Bruhl's character yet, and I thought, guy looks a bit like Daniel Bruhl, but he's too young.
Into like all-time brilliant status, if that.
Because it follows him for at least 2 minutes, quite deliberately. That one guy, and then later on you hear him saying, "My son died in the war," and there's never any connection that you can make in the movie between them, other than the fact I just felt he looked a bit like him.
That's actually a really great story to tell on today, especially of this Canadian corporal. I don't remember his name, unfortunately, that was killed at 10:58 a.m. by probably artillery on November 11th, 1918.
Yeah.
And you just feel so bad for that poor kid, because if he had lived the next 2 minutes, he would have survived the whole fucking war.
I know.
Yep.
And the reason I say it was probably artillery is because everyone was firing shells off at each other because they still had ammo left and they didn't want to take it home. They were just firing it all.
Well,
yeah,
there was probably in World War I and World War II, and actually probably any other armed conflict, it makes you think. It's like how many people have died, after a truce has been called or whatever, they hadn't gotten the word yet that the war is over.
Especially in like the colonial era. I know the Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812 was fought 2 weeks after the treaty had been signed, but nobody knew
communications. But in the Second World War, there were still fighting going on in parts of Europe after the ceasefire.
In the Pacific too, there were Japanese guys who never got the word.
Yeah, and German units there were some German units that were fanatical, continued to fight, and others just didn't know or thought it was propaganda or bullshit. Yeah. So it took a few weeks.
Wasn't there like a Japanese soldier that was like he was like stuck on this island or something, and it was like
40 years.
It was like decades after the war was over, and he's still there, like.
Yeah, it was like
I remember an Archer Habs on that.
He was finally brought home in like 1974 or something like that.
Sorry, nice to see Shell's continuing Navy tradition of drinking his own urine there.
Sorry, I couldn't resist something else.
It's Lipton green tea.
That's what you say. That's what you say.
Yeah,
sorry,
Pope. Soul Assassins got it right. Like the only way they got this guy to come in was they actually found his old long retired commander and had him go tell him to stand down.
He said, "I can't leave. I'm still looking for a Pokemon."
Jesus.
Hey. 7. Either way, it's been filtered. Okay.
That's right. And through the best kidneys in the business.
Christ.
Yeah, I remember Archer had an episode on that where they had this Japanese soldier who was stuck there since World War II on the island. They didn't know war was over.
And that's crazy when you think about it. That this guy, well, I mean, I think these guys knew, and they just didn't want to stop fighting. For 28 years, he spent in the jungle.
I mean, if you're stuck in like the one guy who they found, like for a long time. I mean, did he have communication with anyone?
I don't know.
I guess that's a big question. Like, if he doesn't have communication with anybody, it probably just got stuck in that survival mindset. You know, I have no idea what's going on. I mean, imagine the shock of, you know, like you go back to your country, it's, you know, post occupation essentially, and you know, like everything else. Just
Phil's mentioned that.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize it.
Well, I mean,
I would have thought the fact that all communication with them went totally silent for years might have been a clue to him that things had maybe changed, but you know,
things maybe hadn't gone that well.
That's right. Otherwise, someone might have come to get him.
Although, as a former infantryman, this is perfectly infantry mentality. Just keep doing what you were doing until someone comes along and tells you to do something.
Well, look
different.
at Black Hawk Down. There's two buggers that got left behind. Like, I don't think they're coming to get us.
It's like, were we supposed to go to them?
Oops. But that's a military thing. I mean, I remember being out in guard duty one night, and it was like a foot of snow and freezing cold and whatever. And somebody had said to get everyone to come in. And I don't know, I never got the message, but by God, I stayed out there all night with her. Nobody, I couldn't see anyone else. But
and you would, and you know what? That's drilled into us from minute one.
Yes, I can't leave this.
You will stand there and die before you disobey that order.
Black Hawk Down, love it. I love that movie.
Another great one, Fury.
This is yes. I mean,
Furry.
you talk about you know, some of the stuff that people went through. Fury is a really good movie. You know, for that, because you know they're sitting there. 0 Dark 30.
All right, okay.
They can't all be winners.
You know what though? I'm pretty happy though. We've got some really good like World War I movies. Like what's that one? 1917.
Yeah,
which was more cinematic than anything else, but that was a fantastic movie, and I want to see more World War I movies.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You know, my favorite World War I movie? It's got nothing to do with the Western Front. It's Gallipoli.
Yes, brilliant movie.
Fucking awesome movie. Like,
and I really enjoyed the ending where, like, you know, you spend the whole movie seeing these guys be as fast as possible and whatever, and like, you know, they become really good friends, and you get to know both of them really, really well, and then they go over the top, and everyone dies in seconds.
Yeah,
there's another There's another British movie like that
Gibson,
with The Trench.
The Trench,
yeah, where like they're all like,
wait, I'm thinking.
Spend 2 hours following these guys around, and then they go over the top, and everyone dies.
I forgot what it was called, but didn't Christopher Nolan do a war movie? I forgot what it's called.
Dunkirk.
Yep, that's about
Dunkirk. Yeah. I know, but seeing some of this movie in terms of how presentation.
Well, we were talking. My wife and I were talking about it and saying that Dunkirk does come somewhat close to some of this movie in its feeling. I mean, it's not as brutal, I don't think, in many ways, but it's got a similar feel to it because a bunch of trapped people in a tough situation. But you know, Gallipoli is that movie's hardcore.
Wasn't there some idiots like online making a big deal about Dunkirk not having enough representation?
They did, where are all the women? Where are the women and the representations?
Back at the factories is where they were.
It's World War II. The woman was just medics.
Because women were drafted onto the front lines in 1939. That's right. Yes.
Well, I mean, there were female infantry units in the Soviet Union because they ran out of men. Like they had run through their entire male population. That was
imagine being an alive male Russian soldier in that era, then who escaped getting killed in the war, and you had a battalion of females around you, young females. That must have been hell.
Not really. No. Not really, because he's still shell shocked from all the stuff that he had been through.
That's true. But,
I mean, the Soviet front in World War II was just freaking brutal.
Brutal.
It's like the definition of brutality. And like the Russians lost 20 million men,
and would still have kept going. But they always knew they had the distance and the weather on their side, no matter what. Same thing, defeated Napoleon. Just wait longer.
Yeah.
And the Russians did the same thing they do every time: fall back, burn
Yeah.
everything,
Just
and then wait
wait
for winter.
longer. Yeah.
Actually,
That's
what helped defeat Napoleon was the fact that they were freaking starving, and they actually got to where they were going, and they're like, oh look, food, and then they ate too much. They actually ate themselves to death because they were so malnourished that they ate too much food and they died because of it.
Well,
Damn.
Napoleon insisted on campaigning through the winter in Russia. Good move.
always a great idea.
Yeah,
always
fighting a land
works.
war in Russia has never worked out badly for anyone.
No,
But-
the Germans almost pulled it off. The Japanese had to go and ruin that.
Yeah, true.
Was because once the Russians knew the Japanese, were too chicken shit to fight them,
and
all those Midwest.
I find it hilarious too that, like, at the timing of all that, where they were just getting to the point where they were grinding Russia down, and then the Japanese go and bomb Pearl Harbor, something that Hitler had been doing every song and dance known to man to keep us out of the war, because he wasn't an idiot. And you're probably looking at the Japanese like, you did what?
Yeah, I mean, if the Japanese would have attacked Russia, it would have been over. Because
the Japanese,
sides, it would have been screwed.
Yeah. The Japanese didn't even listen to their own people.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the admiral, going, yeah, this isn't a good idea because,
Right.
in America, there's a gun behind every blade of grass.
Yeah, all we've done is wake them
like,
up. We've woken up a monster we can't defeat. Yeah.
Yep, woken the sleeping dragon. Yep, I think that was Yamato
Awaken the
or
sleeping
Yamamoto.
giant. And the crazy part was just the industrial capacity we had back then. We just built a navy.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could do that again.
We probably could, but it would take us a while.
Yeah. My
built a
paternal
modern
grandmother was a Rosie Riveter too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like a lot
Especially nowadays, we don't allow ship travel as often as back in those days, like in the 40s.
Yeah.
Because
and stuff takes a lot longer to build too, because like it'll take us like probably 3-4 months to build a Arleigh Burke class destroyer or something like that. Whereas Fletcher's, we were cranking those things out in a week. And they were, and
Can you imagine?
And everyone kind of was like looking at the Fletcher because it was really advanced design for his time. And everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, like it's nice and all, but you guys are never going to be able to mass produce that." And we're like, "Here's 180 something of them."
It's the forerunner of the 3D printer, really. If you think about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think the record for a ship being built was, I think we built a Liberty ship in like 16 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like from
That is
the
wild.
time the keel was laid until the finish.
Yeah, but now you can't count a few ballots at night,
Oh yeah, that takes weeks.
Yeah.
It was just absolute insanity.
What a shame. Yeah. Because the FDR was keen to enter the war for various reasons, so he probably wasn't too unhappy about Pearl Harbor in some ways, because it was what economically rescued America from the clutches of the ongoing
Pretty much.
depression, So
I mean, let's be real. We were in the war. We just, weren't fighting anybody.
busy supplying Britain. And
Which-
all
Yeah, we were basically bankrolling the English.
That's kind of Sorry, go ahead.
I was say we were sending weapons to everybody. I mean, Russia. There's like a bunch of like Lend-Lease style like old weapons that Russia had too.
I do want to point out, though, that America wasn't sending things to Britain; they were loaning them, and
Yeah, we were loaning.
they expected repayment. And it's only in the last few years that Britain's finally paid the last of its war debt to America.
Yeah, because initially they just started buying equipment off of us, and then they ran out of money, so we started loaning them the money to buy weapons off us with.
Because it was pretty bleak at the end of when France and all of Europe was conquered. Britain stood alone, and
I think
it
in like the
said
summer
nothing.
of 1941 or something like that.
Britain was going to have to sue for peace.
They were
Yeah,
only
they were-
2 or 3 convoys away from starvation. Like before
The
Britain would have
British
had-
cabinet wanted Churchill to sue for peace, and he resisted. And luckily, he did long enough. Although, the fact that they weren't going to invade Britain because the Battle of Britain won the air war, so Hitler was never going to physically invade Britain after that. But it would have been a standoff. There would have been a standoff then, and Britain would have had to say, "Well, peace. We need peace." Yeah.
Yeah, at least until the V2 rockets came out, and I don't
Mhm.
remember exactly when that came out, but I mean,
The
enough
funny story
V2
with the-
rockets.
The funny story with those was initially they were accurate. They were hitting London with it, and the British started went to their papers and were like, "Hey, you're telling them exactly where it hit.
Mm,
Say it hit 15 kilometers north of where it did. Like out
that's
the
right.
countryside."
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's
all
quite
of a
smart.
sudden they started hitting there because it never occurred to them that the British might be lying.
The V1s, I love the pilots that used to go up and tip the V1s
Yep.
with their wings so they would go off course. What a
Wow.
fucking job they did. The
And what a
Spitfire
freaking
pilots and
show
whatever.
of, show of perfect airmanship and piloting
Yeah.
ability.
Couldn't
Able
do it
to
with the
do that without
V2s, obviously, but the V1s they could do it with. Yeah.
To be able to do that without crashing. That's
I just
skill.
imagine the balls you'd have to have. Be like, hey, you see that bomb flying through the sky?
So,
Go tap it.
why have you got a second Spitfire behind you? It's carrying my balls.
Well,
You know.
no, no, the guys that had balls were like the World War I pilots, you know, because I mean they didn't have parachutes or nothing, you know.
I
It's
mean,
I
like
love the way they used to
planes were
bomb
basically
people. They'd
built.
fly over them, lean over the side with a grenade, and drop it. That was their
Yeah.
bombing run.
Yeah, and I love watching like the old like World War I style bombers because it was literally just a guy holding a bomb over the side and just
That's
kind of
right.
chucking
Yeah.
it.
what is it? Fly Boys, I think is the name
Yeah,
of the
that was a great
movie.
movie too.
That
When I was growing up, I was a huge fan of a series of British books called Biggles, about a character called Biggles. There was dozens of these books written, and they were about a First World War pilot called Biggles, and he had his crew around. So Royal Flying Corps, then it wasn't even the Air Force. I loved those books, and they did make a TV series out of them years ago in Britain in the 60s, and there was a movie in the 70s. I can't remember who was in it. I always thought they would have made a great, really good high production show about the RFC and all the biplanes fighting each other and whatever, and getting crash landing behind enemy lines.
I just want to tell
think it'd be
everybody,
great.
I'm getting very hungry, so I'm going to be going to eat. But I might be back if y'all still going.
All right, man.
All right, sir.
Good having you on as always.
Take care.
Yeah. So these Biggles books were favorites of mine as a kid. Got me into aircraft and wanted to join the Air Force. But yeah, it was all about that era, the biplanes fighting each other, and it was phenomenal books. Like very old fashioned,
But yeah, those. I mean, the World War I pilots, like that was like you say, Shellback. They didn't have parachutes or anything like that. So if you got shot down, you were going with it.
Or
But
reliable technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that movie Fly Boys though, you know, they oh boy, you know, he goes to France because it was an actual, you know, French squadron or whatever, but it was made up of like, you know, Americans or whoever, you know, but they, you know,
Yeah, they would
they
take
were
volunteers.
they were actually, you know, they're actually, you know, serving in the French military. But I mean, they had a fucking their mascot was a lion, right?
Yep.
And they had an actual fucking lion. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, this is, you know, like I said,
like,
you know,
who Pope, you would know this. Who's the people who had the bear during World War II?
Oh, the Poles. Yep.
Yeah, the Poles, the fucking bear.
Wojciech, the artillery bear.
Mm-hmm.
And like they would feed beer. And
if you had an entire squadron of bears, that would be quite fearsome.
I mean, it would not be the first time.
Unleash the Ursine division.
Bunch of winged hussars on a fucking bear.
That would be absolutely.
Put those in the
glorious.
trenches. Throw those in the other guy's trench.
Need to hit up an artist. I need to make this.
Bear cavalry.
bear cavalry.
Oh, man.
you know, 70s brought up, you know, the fact that, you know, World War II though kind of brought us out of, you know, the Great Depression or whatnot, and you know, it's kind of unnerving because it seems like we're kind of in that place again, you know, in these current times.
Yeah,
know?
Bit of a slightly different situation. We can't make, you know, we couldn't make a Fletcher, and you know, we.
But
this is the books I used to read. There was dozens of them. Biggles books,
cool.
and I love the artwork.
I wonder if anybody still prints them. That'd be.
Oh, this is a fairly recent one, I think. Yeah, this is great artwork. But they were fabulous boys' adventure books with very detailed descriptions of the aircraft and the combat and flying over the trenches. Of course, there was a lot of stuff done on the ground too.
And they mention that in the book, not so much in the movies, but they do mention it a lot in the book that like their only method of basically entertainment was sitting there and watching the fighter pilots go over the front and start shooting at each other.
You just saw a little bit of them in the background when they were sitting on the shooter plank, reading the letter, and you saw them in the background shooting at each other. Yeah.
Poor
it's funny when you think about it, because nowadays we talk about like combined arms warfare, and like you're all operating together, and all in kind of common, like all in communication constantly. And back then, like that was a completely separate war. Like this was just a thing that was going on while we were doing our thing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really very little to do with the guys on the ground. A lot of that stuff.
Unless it crashed near you, you really didn't care.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah, there was a movie. Peter Cushing was in it. Biggles Adventures in Time, 1986 movie with Peter Cushing.
I'll have to try to find that.
I don't think I've ever seen that. I'm going to watch that sometime.
Yeah, I'm looking. Looks like they've got some audio books, so I'm going to add those to my list if I can get them without using Audible. Anyway.
Yeah, they're written by a real Air Force captain as well. So.
And like we're talking, and like the cool part of World War I for me was the new technology that was just coming in that hadn't even really been fully implemented yet, like the submarine or the aircraft. Where at the beginning of the war, the Red Baron got his first 2 kills standing up in the backseat of a recon plane with a shotgun.
Jesus.
And that was the most advanced aircraft you could have, because they needed to figure out a way to fire a gun through the propeller without chewing it off. And that took them like a year. But
yeah, and then they had to get
submarines back then,
device that timed it. I don't know how it did it, but it was a timing.
And the submarines back then, it was just like, yeah, it'll go down. Coming back up again is a little debatable.
Imagine the balls it would take to go into the early submarines. Yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It's
like, you mean the boat is supposed to sink?
You mean we're supposed to go several hundred feet underwater in this diesel-powered...
Don't worry about it.
Fine. It'll be fine.
It's supposed to leak a little bit. It's okay.
That's right. Just bail it out if it leaks.
Jesus Christ.
I really would not. I'm claustrophobic. I really wouldn't want to go in a submarine.
I looked at joining the submarine service when I was going in, and I couldn't. I'm too tall.
Yeah, I would only join the submarine service if Denzel Washington was my vice captain, second in command, first officer. Sorry,
couldn't pay me enough money to do it. I mean, I'm a tiny person, and I wouldn't do it.
That's right. I wouldn't. It's the claustrophobia. I love
that movie.
I recommend this, since you brought up submarines.
Yep.
It's a really good movie.
Was when submarines really were actually a viable weapon, whereas in World War I they were more of an oddity than anything else. In fact, some navies didn't even want them because they considered it ungentlemanly.
Yeah, didn't they just use them to mine harbors and stuff?
A lot of the times, and then the Germans really started going after convoys and stuff with them, and they considered that very ungentlemanly.
It is ungentlemanly.
Almost pirate-like.
Yeah, one ping.
And I think Ryan was on a
Yar.
But
so you're too tall. Yeah, that's right. You'd be banging your head the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, because I think like the maximum overhead on even the modern Los Angeles classes and stuff is like 5'10", and I'm 6'2". So
the bunks might even be big enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be right at home. Jesus.
So,
5'6".
Well, see, the thing is,
me too.
even on an aircraft carrier, right? What the racks on that we had were about 6 foot long, so yeah, the guys that were too much more than 6 foot, their foot would be sticking out or whatever,
Yeah, but. It's space is at a premium. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've got a warship
Right.
with like 5,000
Yeah.
men on it.
But if you go on
Right.
these Second World War bomber aircraft like the Lancaster, they're as tight as hell to get into too. I mean, you're really crammed in
Yeah, I
there.
mean, and some of the
See-
World War II subs as well. Like, I know there's one down in Fall River next to the USS Massachusetts, the USS Lionfish, and the hatchways on that thing are fucking tiny. Like, I can barely fit through them.
Claustrophobia. Oh. I would hate that.
And those were like a luxury palace compared to some of the World War I subs. And these things had a test depth of like 200 feet, maybe. And I do love that HMS Dreadnought's only combat kill. She actually is the only battleship in the world to have sunk a submarine. She rammed it.
Well, it works.
Yeah, I mean, Dreadnought probably had no idea there was a sub there, and they were just kind of in the way.
Ramming speed.
My ship almost ran over a submarine when we were in the Coast Guard. A fucker just popped out right in front of us. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
So they pulled a hold on maneuver.
Hold on maneuver.
Yeah, pretty much. Except,
God.
Yeah.
More satisfying.
Phil was talking about the Spitfire flyover in Ottawa's Remembrance Day thing. That's the greatest aircraft ever.
Certainly certainly the most elegant of the World War II,
Beautiful,
the Warbirds.
Aircraft.
My personal favorite has always been the P-38, which is a big, ugly brute of an aircraft.
Power.
God,
Spitfire
dude.
was speed and maneuverability.
Well, the P-38 was the twin prop, twin tail, freaking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool.
And not surprisingly, all of America's highest scoring aces during that war all flew the P-38, including
favoritism, giving them those planes. They're showing favoritism,
including America's top scoring ace with the best name of all time, a man by the name of Richard Bong.
Richard Bong, high as a kite, literally.
Well, like I said, I have a kind of a soft spot for the P4U4. It being something that naval aviators and marine aviators use. But the probably the more famous whatever of aircraft, World War II aircraft, was of course the P-51, the Mustang.
Yep.
I love the Mustang personally.
No, yeah, the Mustang's great. I think I prefer the Corsair over it just because it looks cooler, but the P-51 was a hell of an airplane.
And not to go off on another tangent, but speaking of the P-51, another famous squadron who got those were the Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails.
Oh, yeah.
America's first black pilots.
I forget.
They had a hell of a record too.
I forget what the squadron number was, but
I'd have to look that up. But they had the Red Tail, which is why I call them the Red Tails.
There was two movies made. One was Red Tails,
and the other was
it was more Hollywood. Yeah. But the other movie, the Tuskegee Airmen, was more. I think it was probably more accurate, better or whatever. But it's like and not to get too political or anything, but when back when old Poofy Head freaking started kneeling on the football field, it's because of his people and all that stuff, it's like one of my first thoughts was to the Tuskegee Airmen, and it's like the fact that they fought and died when they couldn't even like legally vote or anything, and then you got these fools, freaking kneeling on the damn, during the national anthem. I'm like, it's like you're spitting in your own people's face. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. But to get back to like the movie, there's all sorts of just great little scenes of, you can tell that the accuracy of what they're trying to say of just the everyday lives of soldiers, where you're more concerned about where your food's coming from or what or whether you have clean socks than anything the enemy's doing. and just like the day in, day out monotony of war, where it gets routine. Like it sounds crazy when you think of you can adapt to a situation where there's just artillery falling randomly at any given time, and that's normal.
That's what Band of Brothers did real good too.
Yeah, the relationship between the guys in that was just fucking glorious. And it's something really intergenerational that like it's not tied to a specific war or something like that. It's just grunts being grunts. And it's probably happened since time immemorial, or at the very least since the invention of gunpowder.
You know, like I can't remember if it was 70s or who that mentioned something about the World War I guy who, you know, he got confused and ran off in the wrong direction or whatnot.
Oh yeah, from the book.
It makes me think of on Band of Brothers when oh shit, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank now. But anyway, the one dude who he's like sitting there and he's like, I'm blind, I can't see, you know, and it was like and it was all in his head, you know, like it was like a form of, you know, shell shock or whatever, you know, like he was like literally freaking scared blind or whatever, you know, and
shell shock was a perfect word for it, because like, you know, just the thunder and concussion from the guns from that period of time would just make people snap. Like it would legit drive men insane.
You know, George Carlin has a good bit on, you know, like how we describe PTSD and things like that. And I mean, shell shock, you can't come up with a better word for it. Like we try to, you know, like compartmentalize, you know, like all these different disorders and things like that, but nothing's quite as impactful.
Mm-hmm. If there was somebody that I could bring back to life, oh my God, it would be freaking George Carlin.
Oh yeah,
he would be having a heyday over these last few years.
Oh,
you know,
God,
I mean,
he's been going off.
Yeah, we'd be doing like Dave Chappelle's doing.
Oh, dude, they if Carlin was still alive, they'd be like, Chappelle who? You know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
no. I'll be trying to cancel him probably, but
no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. He'd be doing the Dave Chappelle thing because he probably would have had the exact same result with these fucking people.
And I do love how, like, you know, Chappelle's like a lot of comedians where, like, you know, his reaction is kind of, "Why are you booing me? I'm right."
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I got to drop now, guys.
All right, man.
My time is up.
On, as always.
Nice talking to you.
Fantastic. Yeah, good to talk to you, Rob, Shell. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, mate. And Pope, thanks for doing this, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
Yes, don't drink that urine.
It's tea.
You're in the money. Just because you put it in the fridge doesn't mean it's tea. Right. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks, chat. See you all soon.
Have a great Remembrance Day, man.
Yeah, you too. Cheers, guys.
All right.
Take care.
Joe's here. I can shoot you the link if you want, Joe, if you're available.
So,
I played your video at the beginning.
I do have a question for Shell back here. I've never met you, sir. You said Navy, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you a Shellback?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Twice,
nice. Me too.
Actually.
I forget which one's Shellback. Is that Equator?
Yeah.
Equator.
The second time, we actually crossed it, you know, at 0-0. So, you know, I you know, everybody was a golden Shellback.
Yeah, golden Shellback. Yeah. Barely.
I never got my certificate for that one.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a crime. I've got my golden dragon.
No,
as well.
I tell you the real crime though, is because that was right around the time or a little after actually with the whole tailhook scandal. If anybody's old enough to remember that. So, you know, it was in the news quite a lot about, you know, hazing and all this crap. So, you know, when I was a Shellback and I could, you know, have my fun, they wouldn't, you know, it basically wasn't allowed. So, you know, that that second WOG day just kind of really sucked for me, because I couldn't give it back.
Yeah, no, I got
So,
the shit hazed out of me.
It was really lame, but
Phil's asking for context, I assume, for the Shellback and the Golden Dragon. That's when you cross things like the Equator, the Prime Meridian, and other like the big. There's one as well for like the Arctic Circle, which I think's Penguin or some nonsense.
I don't remember which is which. I think it's the Equator and the Prime Meridian, which is like 00, I think.
Yep.
Or is it international date line or something?
And that's the golden.
When you cross both.
When you do the Equator and the international date line, it's just regular shellback, I think. If I remember correctly.
I'm trying to remember which one's which. Prime Meridian, is that? I think that's Atlantic.
Yes, it is.
So it would be international date line and the Equator, which I've got both Golden Dragon and Shellback. We did not unfortunately get to do both, but I did get to swim over the Marianas Trench. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So
No, I mean,
jumping off of a frigate, not the
well, they
not my favorite thing in the world.
Was it that second deployment? Anyway, they actually had a swim call in the Persian Gulf, and I was like, no, thank you. And it's a good thing because it's funny because they had the little boats out there with like to kind of like pull people out if they needed to, but I swear like half the people that jumped in were getting they had to get treated for like jellyfish stings.
Yep. We had 2 people going to anaphylactic shock, and the Navy out in Guam had to fly out one of their whatever Black Hawk helicopters, whatever they call them. So everybody calls them something different. Yeah. And so we had 2 people who basically got to stay over in Guam for a couple of days.
Well, the Navy's real inventive. They're called Seahawks.
Yeah.
In the Navy, yeah.
Or sort of the Jayhawk, which I think are the prettiest of the Black Hawk style helicopters.
They do look pretty nice. I'm surprised the Marine Corps is the only branch that never fucking used them.
Oh, really?
Yep, we used
what?
Yes, we still use
they still don't. The Marines don't have freaking.
It's such a good helicopter.
Black Hawks.
But we still use the Huey. We're on the UH-1Y.
I mean,
why is this thing still around?
There's only one letter left in the alphabet. I'm just saying.
And on the AH-1, the Cobra, we've actually hit that. It's the AH-1 Zulu model now.
No, Jesus.
So these things, I mean, when the Marine Corps gets a thing, we never get rid of it. It's hilarious. Mostly because we don't have a budget. So if we can something that works, we still work it until it falls apart.
Don't talk to me about not having a budget, sir.
Oh yeah, I mean the Coast Guard get it to work.
Jesus Christ, we had M16A2s for God's sakes.
And they're talking about giving some of the LCS ships to you guys, and the reaction from most of the Coast Guard I know is, we don't want those pieces of shit. Get them away from us.
We had like one Navy ship, and it was the biggest piece of shit.
Oh man!
Not that our cutters are any better. I told you about the story about the one who got the fucking Tomahawk and melted the goddamn boat. We were going into San Francisco, going under the Golden Gate Bridge. We had a brand new, the pride of the Coast Guard, the International Security Cutters, brand new motherfucker, caught on fire. It's like its first voyage. We were passing them. It was like we saw the Coast Guard helicopters flying out there because most of them had structural problems, and the rest were catching on fire. And these were supposed to replace the Vietnam era high endurance cutters, which are the only ones that can travel the Bering Strait. And the International Security Cutters can't even properly travel the Bering Strait. So
always nuts, man.
It's fucking useless. I remember we're still supposed to get that brand new icebreaker, but nope, they're cannibalizing the Polar Sea to or the Polar Star to, one of them. They only have one icebreaker that can work at the Bering anymore.
Yeah, Christian, I can only imagine what the Canadian military budget looks like.
Well,
And keep in mind, folks, this America is the best funded military on the planet by far, and we still have shit like this.
yeah.
I was gonna say, don't the Canadians still have to have like part-time jobs? You know,
Some of them, yeah.
I mean, don't be talking shit. Our guys have got to get on food stamps because of all the bullshit they've got going on right now.
Yeah, people don't realize that like some of the privates in the army and stuff, they're on food stamps.
I mean, not
Because
only
they don't make any
they're
money.
telling them to get on food stamps because they're just not paying them anything. I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of bullshit's that? They wonder why recruiting rates are so fucking low right now. Well, maybe it's because
Right.
people can't eat.
It's like if you can't even pay a soldier enough to feed his fucking wife and kid, then
Yeah.
what do you want him to do?
No, exactly.
use the right pronouns.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a brilliant move. Like trying to get the Marine Corps to be politically correct. Like that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get
you
there
know,
eventually.
I don't know, and you know, you got. Oh God, he's like running the fucking Joint Chiefs of Staff, isn't he? The freaking Millie. God,
Yep.
that guy needs to fucking go.
Yeah, but getting back to like the movie.
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
but no, that's fine. We go off on tangents here all the time. It's kind of something we do here. But oh man, it really also just drives home the sheer like, industrial scale of everything. Because like, it's not like this scene where you got like a couple of squads. You've got hundreds of guys involved in these attacks and stuff like that, and just getting mown down by the bucket load every day.
Yeah, getting mowed down, and like you get into one trench, and they talk about it in the book, right? Like, like they'll attack, they'll push back, and then they'll, have to attack again. They'll have to run back to their trench.
That was the thing too. Like, if all these men are dying, and from the time the trenches went up in late 1914 to the end of the war in 1918, like right up until like the last month or so, the Western Front had moved less than a mile.
Yeah. And
millions of men died for 200 yards of territory, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
at any given time, that you were then going to lose the next day because the enemy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How do you have any sort of morale? I mean, you see people like in the movie, they talk about it in the books too. People just going crazy from it. Like, how can you possibly escape that kind of despair? From that, like it's got to feel hopeless.
Yeah, and especially because they don't even it gets to the point where they don't even want to think about what they're doing after the war because none of them think they're going to see it.
Or that they'll fit in.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I probably used to know, more about this once upon a time, but seriously, like we only freaking gained a mile of ground on the whole 4 years.
The front line moved constantly, but was only a couple of 100 yards here or there, and then
I mean that didn't even get us out of France.
It's like all the progress you made would get undone by the next enemy attack, and you'd end up back in the trench lines where you started a week ago. And it was just sheer industrial brutality.
Yep.
And obviously, like this is mostly a heavy metal channel. I follow the band Sabaton very closely. They've done two entire albums on this war, and they'd done songs previously. They did one about the Gallipoli landing, and they also did one about Passchendaele called "Price of a Mile."
Mm.
And like they asked the question, like, "What's the price of the mile?" And like 500,000 men died in that battle.
Oof.
So it was just basically what ended World War I. It wasn't the fact that we actually got to Germany like we did in World War II.
Well, we were threatening to, because keep in mind, at that point, the Americans were pouring 250,000 fresh men into the line every month. So eventually the Germans just ran out of guys. Like they just couldn't keep up with that level of manpower.
The fierce brutality as well of the American military from that time was, I mean, something to behold, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean it was also because the first guys that they faced on the American side were American Marines, who at the time were trained to fight on board ships. So we were used to fighting in very close, very confined spaces and had tools specifically designed for it. And also we were the ones who got taught how to use bayonets very, very well. So we were just tearing them apart as soon as we got into the trenches. And we lost a lot of guys doing it, but they were getting absolutely torn apart. And towards the end, they were starting to get pushed back. And I think they had pushed back into Germany at certain points, or very close to it. By the time
wasn't that how you guys got the nickname Devil Dog?
Kinda. And after a while, the Germans were absolutely terrified of facing off against the Marines. And also, they had a very hard time predicting the Americans, because keep in mind, we didn't have a real professional military at the time, or not really. So most of our officers were amateurs. They were doctors and lawyers or whatever that just happened to enlist and have a college degree. So what a German or professional military officer would do was not what the Americans would do. And they would be trying to predict our actions. And all of a sudden we're just over here doing that. It's like, how did they get over there? Why are they doing that?
Yeah,
so we operated on the principle of, if we don't know what we're doing, neither can the enemy.
Yeah, that's gotta be insane. One of the things I remember reading about like a long time ago was like the description, right? Like before the Americans got into the war, of just the German soldiers themselves, and like like basically making them out to be like demons with like tails and horns and shit. And just like they get.
These would be posters that got put up in public, like everybody, and posted in newspapers and all sorts of shit. Like the propaganda around the war was fucking nuts.
Yeah, the first casualty of war is the truth.
Absolutely. And yeah, Phil's a 40K nerd like me, and yeah, the Death Corps of Krieg are absolutely a World War I era army, where it's just sheer manpower. And yes, all the American infantrymen were called doughboys because the mud would get caked to your uniform, and it would just look like fucking dough. And
I had an old. I had an old. I probably still have it somewhere. An old doughboy, like 12-inch GI Joe figure from way back in the day. I had to find it though. It was one of my favorite toys because something about that uniform is just so iconic.
Yeah, especially with the British style helmets.
Yeah,
because we didn't have our own.
And I really liked the detail on it too, because you had the because the shoes, and then the wrap for the the leg of where the boot would be, whatever you call it.
Spats. I believe.
Yep. We would just call them leggings, but yeah, it's like those were. And they were basically just full wool uniforms. It was like going to war in your dress uniform. I can't imagine fighting in that kind of shit.
Yeah, I can't either. I had that's another thing I've got somewhere. I've got this old Swiss World War II jacket, like actual combat jacket. It's the thickest wool you can imagine, but I mean, somewhere like the Switzerland,
you're gonna want it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, wool is actually better though, because it will, it will breathe, and actually, like if you get it wetted, it's easier to dry out and all that stuff.
But when you're fighting it gets hot and sweaty real quick. And then
traps that heat.
The term leatherneck came from the original Marine Corps back in like the Age of Sail, where we would actually wear leather collars to try to protect from sword strikes.
Yep.
So that's where that nickname came from.
Marines get all the best nicknames.
Well,
I just get called things that you can't say on YouTube.
Puddle pirate.
That's not the one.
And we that's part of the fun of being in the military too, is we all just give each other shit because it's funny.
What bad names do freaking Coasties get called? I don't.
I can't say it on YouTube. But I can see Pope knows what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But no, it's
but it's just especially like, I mean, our dress uniforms are basically like World War, like our service khakis, like the green jacket. It's basically what they were wearing into combat back then. And it's freaking insane.
Wild.
That was what we were actually fighting in.
It's interesting though. Like World War I was kind of the I think the last time you really saw like the the standout professional uniforms. Like, you know, like the German soldier from World War II is kind of iconic, but I mean, all it really was is, you know, it's just a gray coat. You know, it's like what most people think of when they think of World War II soldiers. But when you watch, you know, like in the movie, you know, like the spiked helmets, you know, like on the German soldiers, or the French had like that. I think it's a really just nice looking blue uniform with the
the French uniform
kind of that
from that period looked
construction
really
helmet.
cool.
Yeah, oh, yeah. But you just after World War One, maybe going. I'd have to look more into the uniforms, but I mean that's just kind of when, you know, those sort of uniforms died because you need something to blend in.
Yeah, I mean,
modern combat,
and especially in World War II, like or in the World Wars, but World War II especially, like not everyone got a dress uniform, like because you weren't going to go to anything nice. You were getting sent straight to the Pacific. So there were Marines out there that were never issued dress blues because you weren't going to need it where you were going.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, but I feel bad for those guys because like that set of dress blues is like part of being a Marine at that point. Like it's part of us. So to be the guys that don't have it is kind of nuts, but. You know, it's the middle of the largest war that's ever been fought. What are you going to do?
Oh yeah,
and the crazy thing for me was the naval side of this war, where almost nothing happened other than the blockade. Like there was very few major engagements, and all of these big, expensive battleships that they had spent the last decade building basically sat in their ports, mean mugging each other. And
yeah,
that was it.
It's really weird because like the lead up to World War One, you had like a lot more naval combat.
Yeah,
I'm back, everybody.
We got an echo coming from you.
Sorry, you might have to deal with that because I can't put my headphones in because it's my phone. And if I put my headphones in, the mic turns off. I'm not even making that up.
But no, like, and then all of a sudden at Jutland, both fleets just kind of came out and just showed up and started shooting at each other, and then went back to their ports and did nothing for the next 2 years.
You might need to like mute your mic or whatever when you're not talking. Mute your mic or whatever when you're not talking.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Give my phone. When I just came in, and when we just come in, not really responsive that well. Hold on.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay. But yeah, like the Dreadnought era, like, and the thing was that the kicker was these things were so expensive and so hard to replace that you couldn't risk them for anything other than a full fleet engagement. Especially on the German side, because they were already at a numerical disadvantage against the Royal Navy, and they needed every battleship they had. So unless you were going to fight their entire fleet, you had to basically keep everything in port.
Yeah, that's a lesson you could really see that they learned going into World War II, because we were giving them our World War One era ships, or the British, because I mean the German Navy was just insane, you know. And it's not like it was that long afterwards, you know, like World War One and World War II. We're talking what, 20-year span, maybe?
Just about from 1918 to 1939. So yeah, only 20 years, basically 21.
It's insane. I mean, we'll talk about like what we did during World War II, you know, to build up our stuff. But I mean, to go from what Germany had in World War One to the most formidable, like technological, you know, like power in the world, essentially.
But they had to do most
in 20 years
too, because they weren't allowed to have most of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like their tank school, they had to do it in Russia because they weren't allowed to build tanks, but they could build tractors. And there's all sorts of things with all these treaties and stuff like that. A lot of the Axis powers, like, you know, kind of skirted around. And then there was Japan that just built the Yamato and basically was just like, yeah, we don't care.
And would Japan have even been part of that?
Yeah,
the rules for that.
They were part of World War One. Not many people remember that. They were actually on the Allied side. And they didn't do much on the Western Front, but there was a lot of naval, like, commerce raiding and stuff like that going on in the German ports in Tsingtao and China and stuff like that, where the Japanese would, you know, interdict some of their shipping.
Yeah, I know they had a pre-World War One, they had like a scuffle with Russia, a naval scuffle.
And that one did not make the Russians look good.
No,
a country that 20 years before had been barely industrialized and like was basically still a feudal society in a lot of ways, had all of a sudden had the world's most modern navy.
Yeah,
it was crazy. It was crazy how the freaking thing worked out.
Yeah, this is one of those boats you can get in World of Warships. That's basically just like it's like a baby battleship. It's got 2 turrets on it.
Yep.
It's just, but that at the time, I mean, that was a beast, you know.
Yeah, at the time it was the best thing ever. And there's actually a game out called like Ultimate Admirals Dreadnoughts where you actually get to design and build your own.
I love that game. Yeah,
I haven't played it yet, but I love watching some.
Oh, really?
Like text from the Black Pants Legion.
Oh my god,
do it!
It's so much fun.
Like he just shitposts with ships. Like he'll just build the most ridiculous fucking thing he possibly can. It's not even good.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Oh, because you can get away with so much stupid stuff. Like get the one of the super battleship frames, and then just load it with nothing but torpedo launchers or something stupid like that. And just go to town.
It's like you can have a
20 inches of armor.
No armor, but it has 18-inch guns and moves at like 40 knots.
Yeah, it's a great game. You should definitely play it. It's come a long way.
Just because, just like play around with naval engineering too. Just kind of fuck around and do dumb shit.
Yeah, because you've got to take certain things into consideration because weight is important in that game. So.
And you can't have all the best things and still have it not also be insanely expensive, which in the campaign is a problem. Especially if you're playing with smaller powers like Italy.
You know, if you want to have fun, you just go to a custom match.
Yeah.
And you just beat up on whatever you want.
Yeah. What is this again?
Ultimate Admirals Dreadnoughts. It's a PC game.
It's a real-time strategy game where you customize basically battleships and any kind of ship really from World War
pretty much from like 1890 to 1950.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting era of warfare because everybody was putting all sorts of weird shit in the water. That, like, look at some of the freaking French that had like 5 different gun calibers on some of their pre-dreadnoughts and stuff like that. Where like this thing was just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, they're trying anything.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing is nobody had ever done this kind of ship before. Armored war. I mean, the age of steam. Like they were basically still Age of Sail ships, just with a steam engine.
Yeah, I mean the ironclad was a massive,
I mean, what? Wait. We don't do ship combat no more, right? No more nowadays, right?
I mean, we do. It's all done with missiles and guns and stuff now, but.
No. I'm talking about. But I heard they stopped making warships after the 80s. So is that?
I mean, we've been making warships. We make like 2 or 3. Well, we make 2 or 3 attack submarines and a couple of Arleigh Burke class destroyers every year.
Well, we make some cruisers too. It just I mean,
although the Ticonderogas are gone. They're getting decommissioned. And we don't have anything to replace them.
We still have cruisers, destroyers, and frigates.
We do have. I mean, they're bringing the frigates back. Unfortunately, the cruisers are going away.
But I think the cruisers are basically like took over the job of like the battleships or whatever. But,
100%. Yeah. And talking to an Navy guy I knew when I was in frigates nowadays, I mean, like they're mostly seems to be protection for aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what I mean. Aircraft carriers and cruise missiles. I mean, that's you can't really do much about that. You know, moving at 30 knots.
Yeah. And
well,
I think we never should have gotten rid of the battleship.
Yeah.
Well, the
nothing says fuck that area in particular, like a 16-inch broadside.
Well, it's funny because like the Missouri, the USS Missouri, that old gal was still around during the first Gulf War.
Yep.
And yeah,
and actually shot up a couple of
they
Iraqi
were freaking shooting the shit out of them damn freaking 16 inchers, into the freaking sandbox.
Yeah, and I think they actually engaged a couple of Iraqi gunboats too, which
Jesus,
those
could
guys
you
picked a
imagine?
long day to be in the ocean.
I mean, I believe all the battleships or some of the battleships at least are mothballed, but they could still be fired up. I mean, I think
the
it's
Iowas anyway. Yeah, all 4 of the Iowas are in reserve, I think, but are still being maintained. Whereas I think the South Dakotas, like the Massachusetts and stuff like that, those are all gone. Like,
it's funny too because like those gun boats you're talking about or whatever, that like the USS Cole incident, right? That led to incidents like I can't remember his first or second deployment, but anyway, I want to say my second. But we're sitting there doing laps in Saddam's pool, and there was this fishing trawler, and it just like kept getting closer and closer, and so over the 1MC, the freaking they're like, this is the USS Constellation, you're getting too close, please divert, nothing, and they just they just keep on, and so they make another announcement, nothing. I think they did it 3 times, and then finally, you hear them over the 1MC. Is like they called the red shirts, Jesus, the ammunition guys, the freaking
the turtlenecks.
Yeah, all the ordnance decks. Yep.
Yeah, ordnance. Jesus Christ, I've been out too long. But yeah, they called the ordnance guys, and to the 50 cals. And
after the call, we weren't fucking around anymore.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there, like up on the flight deck, just watching, and it's like, and you heard them, they, getting ready and stuff, and so they're like, the fishing trawler just kept on coming along, and then all of a sudden it's pop 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 pop, just like right in front of them, right over their bow. And I tell you what, you never saw a fishing boat just freaking
turn that fast.
Yeah, skedaddle there. Oh, that's what they're saying. Okay.
Oh man, and even later on, I know a guy who served on the USS Kidd back in during the whole piracy campaign over in Somalia. Apparently, one of the little boats, these guys were basically on a Boston whaler with a couple of AKs, and they mistook the running lights of the Kidd, which is an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, for a cargo ship, and that went about as well as you'd expect.
Yeah. They weren't saying they were the captain now on that.
Yeah, they got ventilated rather hard.
I am captain now.
When I was
do they still have pirates in Somalia? Or
they still are around. It's just nobody talks about them anymore because it's not new.
Well, a lot of shipping companies are hiring security and stuff. It doesn't take a whole lot to turn these guys away.
Not to mention, in Somalia, do they have a government yet? Because
not that I'm aware of, at least not one that's actually functional.
Because they hadn't had functioning government for decades now, since the early 90s.
I think 84 was the last time they actually had a stable government. I think now it's just whoever owns the capital will say they're the government. No one else listens to them. So,
I don't know. A lot of these countries, I don't think ever going to get fixed. So
no,
not with everybody poking their nose where it don't belong.
That's a given thing too.
I mean, a lot like African countries never gonna get fixed. Middle East countries never gonna get fixed ever at any point. I don't think
Nope,
so.
not.
And everyone likes to blame other countries for their involvement, and I get that. Like, it is not our place to do it. But at a certain point, when you're causing problems for other countries, well, they're gonna get involved at some point. Like,
Well,
look at Somalia.
I think that's the unfortunate thing about being us. You know, is like we're gonna get shit either way. If we sit things out, you know, and let you handle your own business, you know, they're gonna freaking criticize us for that. But you know, they ask us for our help. We go over there and they don't want to do things our way. They criticize us for that. So it's like, you know,
I mean, you can't win, and everyone's out to take you down a peg because, you know, we're the big dog. But no, I mean, it's all, and we do have troops stationed in the Horn of Africa. I know there was a Marine detachment over there for a while. I don't know exactly what they were up to, but probably trying to keep some of the craziness under control.
Yeah, and
I know we have special forces guys there going after Boko Haram and stuff like that.
Boko Haram's still a thing. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, they're still around.
I don't know how we didn't pick them off by now.
There's not many of them left, and I think the Kenyans have actually taken over most of the anti-Boko Haram operations in the area because they hate them too.
Oh yeah, everybody hates them. They're
they're ISIS.
Yeah, yeah. Fucking ridiculous. Like like with some of these terrorist organizations, you can kind of see, you know, like where locals might be sympathetic, but Boko Haram, absolutely.
Wait, ISIS is still around?
ISIS is still around.
They're quote unquote still around.
What's that?
Well, yeah, you know, it's like freaking Afghanistan. You know, the Taliban kind of like went away, but as soon as we left, oh hey, we're back. You know, like,
yeah, I mean they were hiding out, but I mean, I don't even want to get into ISIS. I mean, Jesus Christ, what a fucking mess that was.
Although I will say that was my proudest moment ever on Twitter. It was way back in the day. I was part of the great ISIS Twitter raid, where I don't know if you guys remember this one, where basically somebody found out the password to ISIS's Twitter account.
You
so
kidding me? That's amazing.
Logging in as them and like posting like all sorts of like gay porn and stuff like that on their as them. Oh, I was one of those assholes.
Yeah. His thing
before somebody shut it down too.
His thing get about ISIS is like, so you spend all your time killing other Muslims. That's the thing I don't get. That's ISIS spends all his time doing. But you don't. None of these terrorist organizations ever try to fight China, even though that actually calls for jihad in the Islamic law. What China is doing. That's exactly like that. Way actually that we doing was not called for, but it was actually called for. Like you're not doing nothing about China at all.
They will eventually, I'm sure, because China's gonna.
They're getting supplied by them.
Yeah, I mean, we were supplying them back in the day, you know. They're getting what they can to try and form their caliphate. That's all it is.
The whole caliphate thing's like, you really need a theocracy? Like, is that necessary?
Well, they want it because they'll be in charge of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so dumb. Like when you think about this stuff, a lot of stuff is just so freaking dumb.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here because I think we covered the topic pretty well, and I also have to go eat. So. This has been a great conversation, and you guys all should go check out this movie because it's.
You didn't have breakfast. You didn't have breakfast.
I've been on streams all day, man.
What? Well, did you eat yesterday?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you're good.
I'm about to make me a sandwich. This late art won't do it for me.
Make Rob very sad, late art, wherever you are.
She's sitting on streams, not talking, and that's what she's doing. That was funny as shit ever.
Oh man, that was good.
Well, like any good turtle, I've got pizza in the house. So
Ooh.
yeah.
All right, so going around the horn, and what do you guys got going on in terms of the project and stuff? We'll start with you, Rob.
This.
No, okay.
I
And
mean, I'm working on
Shellback?
a project I'm never gonna finish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
you're
kind of the
working on that.
same. I'm kind of in the same boat. I've been on I guess a hiatus, if you will. But I don't know. I'm maybe hopefully I'll return to like making some somewhat consistent content here in the near future. I don't know.
And,
But
I'm gonna be working on making videos. Making videos, actual videos, but it's gonna be it takes a while to make a video, so you gotta script it and plan it out and stuff.
Yeah.
So my videos I try to be high quality in my videos, but the problem is that's gonna take a while to put it out, especially with all the editing and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I might try to do something the honor Kevin Conroy or something. So
okay.
he just died yesterday.
Yeah, and also before we go, a rest in peace to Kevin Conroy,
Oh,
the
yeah.
voice of Batman for like 25 years. What a loss.
dude, that all this stuff is like starting to piss me off because like all of these people that had like died before I got to see him in person.
Right? He's one of the ones I always
like-
wanted to meet too.
I'm like, quit dying, people! God.
All right, and as for me, I will let you guys know when I'm doing other new stuff because I'm going to be moving next week, and then I'll be getting set up down there. So it'll probably be December before I'm back to making content. I'll probably have a couple of pre-recorded videos that I'll do either tonight or tomorrow, and then I'll release those over the course of the hiatus. And other than that, when we're back, you can catch me here on Sundays for Rock and Roll Religion, where we pick a band and get to it and just talk some heavy metal. And one of those streams, No 70s is going to be on it, and a whole bunch of other people is going to be absolutely massive because we're doing the history of rock and roll from 1955 to 1970.
Nice.
So like the creation of rock and roll as a genre. So that one's going to be a huge episode.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys will join me for that. But until then, take care. Be safe. I love you all. And I'll catch you next time.
Peace.